So this story comes out of Washington State. Washington State in the northwest of America. Denaya Young, 29. This lady right here on the right hand side. She's being charged with second-degree murder. She's 29 years of age. She beat her 14-year-old son with an extension cord until he died. The full account is that she had struck him with extension cords, was beating him for over an hour. He struck his head and lost consciousness as she continued beating him. There was a broken window in this report earlier from right here. So how did this broken window get into it? I'm not for sure. How did the death actually happen? Can you just keep hitting somebody with an electric cord, an extension cord until they die? It feels like it said that he had hit his head. Regardless of the specific details of how it had happened, we've also noticed the age, right? So 29, beat her 14-year-old son, and so that means she would have been 15 years old when she had him. Where is, the baby daddy? Is he around? Now, this isn't the only time that we've seen a child beaten to death. We've seen a couple of these. She's being charged with second-degree murder. Second-degree murder. So that means she didn't deliberate beforehand. I'm not for sure what the definition of first and second-degree murder is in Washington State. Denaya Young pleaded not guilty February 13th, so 4 days ago. Her bail was set at $3 million. Graham was in the family's South Seattle home on January 30th. Did nothing. He said nothing. He didn't call 911. He didn't attempt to stop the merciless beating. Young and Graham have been together for over 8 years and are not legally married but refer to each other as husband and wife. And they've got 3 kids ages 6, 4, and 6 months. While Graham is not the father of the boy who was killed, Graham told the police that he was raising the boy as his own, but I don't discipline him because that's not my place. Graham told police he was moving throughout the house during the boy's beating and could hear the boy being hit and screamed at. He told the police he did not intervene to stop Young because I don't want to jump in and I'm not getting jumped on. You feel like I'm not even trying to have that type of day. Graham also told police that in these situations, my best bet is to mind my own business. So, that's an interesting thing, right? Injustice anywhere is a threat to justice everywhere, but maybe he just feels like it's not his son, it's the mother's son, he's the stepfather, and he doesn't want to get involved, he doesn't want to get in between the mother and the son, but then she's doing something terrible, and then if she's beating him for an hour, it's interesting that he got arrested in addition to her. According to the court documents, Young got upset with the boy for not completing his chores. So he's going to get beat to death because he didn't do his chores. You're supposed to wash those dishes that I dirtied up, and you're supposed to take out this trash and clean up the living room, and you're supposed to sweep up the floor. You're supposed to do. Young said she got fed up with talking to her son about the chores and she went too far. Young repeatedly hit her son with an HDMI cord. Well, that's not exactly an extension cord. It's kind of got a fat end, but that just... extension cord would have a fatter end. But it is being whipped by a wire. It's got that plastic coating on the outside of it, but if you do it enough, maybe you could hit something hard enough, maybe a temple or something, I'm not for sure. She told police she thought he was lying. He told her multiple times that he was dizzy. And the boy suffered at least 1,172 separate injuries during the abuse, and it said actually, according to the King County Medical Examiner, it lasted over 3 hours. The medical examiner declared his cause of death was multiple blunt force trauma. 3 hours. So yeah, I guess that guy was listening to this beating last for 3 hours. And he's just kind of saying, I don't want to have that kind of day, I'm just trying to maintain my peace. And then it said he suffered sudden inflammatory response syndrome, SIRS, in which the body sends blood to so many areas in the body that it cannot sustain the heart. The mother told police during the interrogation she had physically hurt the boy before. She said it started in November 2024. She had hit him, punched him, put her hands around his neck, and used the HDMI cord to injure him before. Now let's go back up to when they were talking about him. Khalil Graham, they start out with him, 24, is charged with 2 domestic violence offenses, second-degree murder due to criminal mistreatment, and first-degree manslaughter. He was arrested by Seattle police on Friday. Now, it's first-degree manslaughter. Doesn't that sound just as bad as murder? Manslaughter, almost, that sounds worse. You slaughtered a man, whereas murder, I mean, it's murder, but manslaughter, like slaughtering somebody, but I bet you it's a lesser charge. So she's getting second-degree murder, and he's getting first-degree manslaughter and second-degree murder due to criminal mistreatment. I don't know. I don't feel terribly sorry for him, but it does seem like he wasn't the one doing it. She was the main culprit. She's the one beating him, and since it's her son, he doesn't want to intervene. Maybe he's scared of Denaya Young. Maybe he's afraid of Denaya Young, and he doesn't want to get in between, the mother and her son. They got 3 kids together, so I'm sure he would say something if it would have been one of his kids. And then again, where is the baby daddy at? Where is this 14-year-old's father at? She does have an expression on her face like she just kind of don't give a fuck. She don't have no heart. She ain't got no heart. She ain't got no heartbeat. So R.I.P. to the son, which we don't know his name. So Mrs. Young, Mr. Young. Here, there's a thing saying 29-year-old Denaya Young admitted that her son says you can't fry chicken. He had 1,172 injuries. 1,172 injuries. Over 1,100 injuries. I mean, she was on a tear and she just could not stop herself. She just could not stop herself. And then here's a picture where, again, devoid of any emotion, but got all these hearts around her, right? Don't you think I'm pretty? Don't you want to love me? Even though I have no love in my soul. Now, this isn't the only time. Also, you have, I read somewhere else about a child beating, but this might be the same thing. Here's another article. Seattle parents charged in fatal hours-long beating of teen son for not doing chores. Yeah, this is the same incident. 27-year-old Khalil Graham, again, 27 and, what we said, 14. So that means he was 13 years old when this kid, this very young man, older kid, was born. So it's the victim's stepfather. He's facing charges as well. He was in the home when the beating occurred, heard it, observed the son, the stepson's physical condition, did nothing to help. Young told her son that it was butt cutting time, then ordered him to remove his clothing and then used an extension cord to beat him. It's butt cutting time. I mean, that's sick and sadistic and psychotic. I'm going to pull out a cord and lash you so many times that it's going to cut your skin. That's why she's saying it's butt cutting time. I mean, don't you remember the picture of the black man with all the lashes on his back? I understand what I did. I fucked up bad. I went too far, Young said during her initial patrol interview. 14-year-old victim was repeatedly crying for help, saying, God, help, 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 stop hitting me, help, anyone. But this is America. Nobody really gives a damn about anybody. She says she's put her hands around his neck during previous ass cuttings, butt butt cuttings, ass cuttings. Young ordered her son to stand. After complying, she continued to beat him for approximately an hour. She would make her son strip out of his clothes during past beatings. That's the same thing as Alexander Supertramp. You know, I don't understand the stripping the clothes off of the child before you hit them. If you needed to discipline them, you know, like one little slap maybe could be like, you know, forgiven. Maybe a slap on the shoulder. And that's if he had attacked you. And even then, I don't even think that you need to strike a kid, because you could just grab his arms. You should still be stronger than him. So she's got a $3 million bail, charged with second-degree murder, pled not guilty. So she's got a public defender who's actually she didn't even show up for the first arraignment. It was just the public defender. And what are these chores? It says she shoved her son against the wall and he struck his head, went limp, and then fell to the floor. So that's what killed him. She shoved her son against the wall. He hit something on the wall, some shelf. And then that thing that hit his head on the shelf, he goes limp and fell to the floor. Young also told investigators she stopped the beating because her son was unresponsive. The assault lasted around 3 to 4 hours, according to a police report. And then the 14-year-old boy died on January 30th. So are they saying that he didn't succumb to his injuries immediately? This didn't happen on the same day? Is that what they're trying to say there? She was charged February 4th. It's not saying exactly when the day had happened or when it was being done. Graham was in. Okay, so he died the same day. It happened on January 30th. And he dies on January 30th. So I don't know why they put the date on that part, because the whole thing happened on January 30th. So that's super messed up. But I will say that, that's a fascist, right? You obey me, and if you don't obey me, then I get to use violence, even if it means 3 hours of violence straight through, even if it means I've been violent the entire time, even if it means I'm soulless and sadistic and shouldn't have had kids to begin with. Here's, something from Atlanta. She was accused of killing her baby with a hairdryer. Now, I don't know how she did this. She's drunk or she's under the influence of something here. So she was like drinking and driving something, maybe on pills or something. But she's going to get arrested for driving under the influence. But this is a separate incident from when she killed her baby with a hairdryer. And they said that she was trying to warm him with the hairdryer, but she was, again, under the influence, and she passed out right next to him, and so the hairdryer was just kept on blowing on him. So the baby's probably just screaming and crying the entire time, if that's the real story. Who knows what the hell she was doing? Who knows why she brought out a hairdryer? Why did she think a hairdryer was important? Did she not go to public schools, and then was that the problem too? Because public schools don't care about education. They care about just shut up, sit down, and obey. So they're fascists too. We have a lot of corporations or fascist institutions, strictly hierarchical, strictly authoritarian. It's incredible because we're supposed to be a free country and we have all these civil liberties. And frankly, if you have just a little bit of common sense, you're born with the right to everything. And so civil liberties, while it's nice to have, free speech, right to assemble, right to freedom of the press, all the freedoms of the Bill of Rights, we're born with the right to everything, just like Scarface says, I want the world, Chico, and everything in it. So a right to everything is a right to anything and everything, everybody and anybody, all the time, every time. Whatever you want. So that's going to cause war, because if you have a right to everything, they have a right to everything, and then you only have a right to as much freedom until you infringe on someone else's freedom, right? So you can dance in the rain all you want, but you can't push somebody over who's trying to dance in the rain, right? Whatever floats your boat but doesn't sink mine, whatever. So the point of civil liberties is you give people civil liberties and you enforce them by the law, Because if you don't have civil liberties, well, then that means it reverts back to natural law, which is law of the jungle, and that means you got a right to everything, including, committing crimes against other people, including injuring other people. So that's the problem with fascism, is that they don't respect human rights, they don't respect American rights, and it's like, well, I gave you birth and I fed you when you was a baby, so now I own you like you're a slave, and then, she's sitting there whipping him with a cord and ripping his skin. And then what was that famous picture with that, black man with welts on his back? The slave, yeah, right there. So, we know slavery was awful, but this is the same mentality as slavery. A fascist is going to whip the crap out of you, keep whipping a person's back and making you do their labor and exploiting you until you comply. So child abuse is very similar to that. Especially when you know that children have unconditional love for you, so therefore if you would have just reasoned with them, if you would have been patient enough to just talk to them, I would say 99% of the time, especially if that's the relationship that you grew up with, but if you always resorted to violence, well, that means you created a violent son. You're a violent person. You've created a violent son. You're supposed to use your words, right? Use your words first. Violence should be the last option, so exhaust all your peaceful options. And it's illegal, but I know that, with the rise of fascism, you've heard both Tucker Carlson and, what's that guy's name? Mel Gibson. Both Tucker Carlson and Mel Gibson says, it feels like Daddy's coming home and he's pulling out an extension cord. He's gonna whoop that ass. He's gonna pull out an extension cord and cut that butt up, cut that back up, cut that face up, push you up against the wall until you go unconscious, until you die. He's gonna beat you till you die. Why? Because you didn't do the chores. And then here's another kicker too, just because growing up on a farm, I can understand that there's more work to be done on a farm. On a farm, you have not just house chores, but outside chores, farm chores, take care of the animals, feed the animals, and then you have to raise the vegetables and then harvest. So for anybody that lives in a city or anybody that just lives in an apartment, the chores are what? To just wash the one plate that he dirtied, and then if he's washing all the dishes of everybody in the family, how's that fair? So that means the younger children are sitting there dirtying up a bunch of dishes, that he's supposed to wash. And then if he's the oldest, then that means he's supposed to be getting the respect as he's got seniority. It just seems, I remember this one incident in Louisville, Kentucky, and it was just a mother and a son. And the mother was saying that his chore was to take out the trash. The tiniest thing in the world, one tiny thing. But that was his job and his job alone, and he was going to do it because she told him, and you're nothing, I'm above you. That's another thing about slavery. When you oppress somebody, you end up putting a chain around your own neck. Abraham Lincoln said he wasn't a slave and he wasn't a master. So he didn't recognize the hierarchy at all. Whereas instead of saying, you're going to do the damn trash because if you don't do the trash, I'm going to be, crazy and violent and mean and cruel and psycho, and I'm going to pull out an extension cord and whip the crap out of you till you die. Instead of just going for that straight away, why wouldn't they try to talk, what's the best thing here? We want a clean house, right? Yes. Okay, so then how are we going to do this? Well, we could do chores, but we'll have to do rotating chores, and then you have to do your part as well. I mean, to think that you live in the house and you're not dirtying up the damn house, and then if it's like, well, I pay for everything, so therefore you got to obey me and listen to me. Well, you're the one that had me, so you're the one that imposed existence on me. So it just seems like it would be so easy to organize. You got two people. How much trash could two people create? How much dishes could two people create? So to always put it on one person and not the other, it seems ridiculous. Hierarchy. When you got just two people in an apartment in a city, you're not having to feed no animals, you're not having to drive a tractor, you're not having to work hours a day. the chore that she was trying to impose against him, essentially takes 5 minutes. And if the whole point was just to bend his will, then that means she's trying to break him. And then if that's the point, is he's just supposed to obey anybody and everybody? Just to be broken? So, R.I.P. to Mr. Young, whatever his name is. R.I.P. to Mr. Young.